Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio. I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez, and this is a program that we do every Thursday live on Facebook and YouTube, and it is called the Pet Loss Companion, and it is the second generation of our book, The Pet Loss Companion: Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups, in that it allows us to have a direct connection with people who are going through their
Mhm.
own experience of grief. And it also allows us to dialogue with you. And that's a lot of what we do on this program is we
Mhm.
read stories from people who have sent us their accounts of often their animal's life in brief and their loss and how they're doing. And if you'd like to send us your story, you can reach me at kenddv at gmail.com. You can reach Nancy at nancysaxtonlopez at gmail.com. And that's actually a change.
That's new.
Nancy's email is a new email. And you'll see it in the description. You'll see all the information that we're going through in the beginning, and I'm going to abbreviate it greatly. You'll find the information in the program description, whether you're with us live or listening to or watching one of the video replays. And there's a number of ways that you can support our program, one of which is to become a subscriber to our Substack, where we post the letters and the beautiful photos that people send us of their animal companions and our correspondence back and forth. And also, you
Mhm.
can give a gift through Venmo or PayPal. And there's other ways you can support our
Mhm.
program. All of that said, we never pushed, we never
No.
pushed that because we know that that's not something that everybody can do, particularly given the times that we're in. And so we do this as a service to the community, and just to know that it may be helpful to some people is a reward enough. The program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society, and Dakin is in Springfield, Massachusetts, and they support a number of resources for those of us who have very strong bonds with our animal family members. And one of the things that they do is they support a monthly pet loss support group over Zoom that I facilitate. And there is no cost for participation. There's an RSVP link in the description. And so if that would be helpful for you, the next one
Mhm.
is
Next Tuesday,
next
right?
next Tuesday, the 18th. It's usually the second Tuesday of the month, but my schedule made it so that we had to bump it to the third Tuesday this time. Also, please consider one of the ways you can subscribe us without sending money is to subscribe. You can support us, I should say, is to subscribe on
YouTube.
YouTube or just to leave a comment or a thumbs up. Anytime that you do that, it alerts the algorithm to the value of the program, makes it so that it shows up more readily when people are searching for pet loss support. So please do
Mm.
that if you are finding value in the program. And then one of the final messages I'd like to give you is to let you know that we are in an affiliate relationship with a business called Bereave, and Bereave makes these really beautifully
Mhm.
crafted granite plaques, memorial plaques that would be a great thing to put on a memorial garden or a gravesite or inside where you keep mementos. And if you purchase a plaque through the link in our program description, we will get a little bit of a gift as part of your purchase price. Bereave will send us a little bit of money, so we kind of get a kickback that's helpful to us. But anyway, that is the end of my opening. And Nancy, you want to get us
Yeah.
started?
And I'm rocking because the only reason, because it seems strange, is I have my little Penny on my lap. I'm trying to keep her quiet. So sorry about that. So we have a story tonight from Sean about his beloved Zed. And I'm going to start with reading the email that he sent, and then he sent a PDF story about Zed. But I really like his email. First and foremost, I want to thank you both for providing the content that you do. I'm so grateful to have stumbled across your podcast when I was, and frankly still am as I write this, at an incredibly low point in my life. I've ordered a copy of your book, and while I'm not sure when I'll be quite ready to read it, I'm sure that when that time comes, it will provide great comfort and relief as I go through my grieving journey. I also intend on making a donation. Very nice, thank you. After sending this email as well, in memory of my boy. If there is any preferred method of payment, please let me know. Again, thank you so very much. I would be honored if you shared my story, but I will preface this by saying that if you do, you may want to give your listeners a trigger warning. I would hate for my story to inadvertently upset anyone that is still dealing with the pain of losing one of their babies. I apologize for the length, and I realize that you may not be able to share it as an entirety, but we will. So please feel free to omit anything that you may feel extraneous. It would be wonderful to have Zed commemorated in one of your episodes, and if it even helps one person work through their grief, it would make the pain I'm feeling worth it. And even if you don't end up reading this, I appreciate that you provided an avenue to share it with you. Writing this down has been incredibly cathartic for me. And I want to emphasize that. Ken and I have always, in writing your story, is just so, it's so important because it works through a lot of the feelings that are pent up in the journey of grief.
It gives you perspective. It gets it outside of yourself. It gives you a perspective, regardless of whether you share it with anyone.
Right.
It can
Just
help
writing,
you.
period.
It can
Right.
help you.
It's always helpful to unleash those feelings on paper. The story is attached as a PDF document to retain in formatting. I've also attached many beautiful stories to the email of my two beautiful boys. I hope they bring a smile to your faces, and they have. All right, so this is the beginning of oh, baby, so cute, of the story of Zed. I lost my baby boy Zed just this past Monday, March 3rd, 2025, around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The younger of my two dogs, he was at the ripe age of 12 years old, almost to the day. But before I share the story of his final moments, if I may, I'd like to share a bit about how he came into my life. About 12 years ago, my girlfriend at the time and I were hitting quite a rough patch in our relationship. We, being the inexperienced young couple that we were, decided that maybe it would be a good idea to adopt a puppy. We had another dog together, Heisenberg, who we called Berg for short, a roughly 1-year-old black German shepherd, and thought that having the additional love and responsibility of a new dog could possibly mend our relationship, while also providing companionship for Berg. This was our golden ticket, we thought. It would fix everything, right? Well, it did not. We started looking online and making rounds to local shelters and humane societies here in Atlanta. We didn't have much of a plan in mind and just played it by ear. We were just looking for something that felt right, something that would tug at our heartstrings. We noticed one day that our local humane society had gotten a litter of puppies that were listed as shepherd mixes. The pictures were not online yet, and so we thought we'd just make the short trip over to see for ourselves. When we got there, we made our way to the puppy section of the facility and started walking down the aisle. We were greeted affectionately by the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed babies clamoring for attention, jumping up and down and yipping their little hearts out as if to say, "Pick me, pick me." They were adorable, as you can imagine, and we stopped to pet each one and discuss briefly whether or not we thought they were the one. Nothing had quite caught our attention, and I began to slump over a bit as I thought to myself, maybe today isn't the day. As we made our way to the last pen at the end of the aisle, something caught my eye. A little black pup tucked away into the back with his head hanging and face buried into the corner, almost as if he was trying to disappear. My stomach sank and my heart melted. "That one," I said to my girlfriend. And we had one of the volunteers grab him out so we could get our one-to-one time with him. They placed him in my arms and he buried his head into my chest. If I wasn't sure before, I was now. He looked just like Berg as a puppy, but with the complete opposite personality, shy, calm, and quiet. My girlfriend joked that he had the same personality as I did. It was a match made in heaven. We began the paperwork and interview process, and within the hour, he was in our car on the way back to our home. When we got home, we decided to put Berg away in the bedroom and give the little one a chance to explore alone for a bit before introducing them. We placed him down, and wouldn't you know it, he crawled into a corner and buried his face into it yet again. He was clearly uncomfortable, and it broke my heart a bit. After attempting to encourage him with treats to no avail, and some short time passed, we thought maybe it was time to let Berg out so they could meet. As Berg awkwardly pranced into our living room, the most magical thing happened. Zed lit up, stumbled over to Berg, tail wagging and all, and they began playing. It was almost an immediate bond that they formed. I was worried that Berg, being just a young pup himself, may play too rough, but he was such a good boy. Gentle and calm, he let Zed nip at his paws and tail, and they played for most of the evening until they just were tired out. I was over the moon. Berg helped Zed come out of his shell, and the next month or so were the happiest I had felt in quite a while. Unfortunately, my girlfriend and I did not end up working out and split up. We agreed that she would take Berg and I, Zed. I was heartbroken because I felt almost like we were splitting up the family. A few years went on, and obviously Zed and I's bond grew tremendously. He was playful, sweet pup, but always had an undertone of being chill, calm, and loving. Everyone who met him commented on how calm he was and how loving his eyes were. One day, almost out of the blue, my ex-girlfriend had asked my roommate, a mutual friend of ours, to watch Berg for a few weeks. The two of us weren't unfriendly by any means, but we certainly weren't in close contact. I was a bit apprehensive and wasn't sure if I could handle that emotionally, or if Zed and Berg would remember each other or even get along. She brought him over, and they were a bit hesitant at first, but friendly enough. And over the next few days, they began to open up with each other, almost as they did initially when we brought Zed home. While my friend was tasked with watching Berg, I think we all know how that turned out given the circumstances. I watched both of the boys, fed them, took them on walks and to the park, and they both slept in my bed together. I was incredibly happy, but the realization started to set in that it wouldn't be forever. Another spoiler, I was wrong again. My ex called me the day that she was meant to pick him up and asked if she could come over and talk. I wasn't sure what it was about, but I agreed. And when she got there, we sat down and she cut right to the chase. She didn't feel like she could give Berg a loving home and wanted to see if I'd take him. My answer was an immediate yes. She had a somewhat confused but relieved reaction and confided in me that she thought I would say no. I reassured her how much I loved Berg and how well the boys were getting along, and that I was honestly having anxiety about splitting them up again. She agreed, and we decided fairly quickly that this was the right thing to do. I'm so happy she was aware enough to realize her inability at the time to care for Berg, because it led to one of the best things to happen to Zed and I. Over the next couple of years, Zed and Berg formed a wonderful bond. They were brothers, absolutely inseparable. We shuffled around renting places until about 7 years ago when I purchased a house with a huge fenced-in backyard for the two of them. It was a promise I'd made to them that before they passed, I would give them a home and a yard of their own. I felt like a great achievement to be able to fulfill that promise, and we have lived some of our best years here. Their younger years were spent in the yard chasing squirrels and each other, playing fetch with balls and sticks, and Zed's favorite pastime, to my chagrin, chewing each individual scale off a pine cone and furiously throwing it out of his mouth. I, thankfully, have worked from home nearly all my career at relatively well-paying jobs. This is not to boast, but contextualize how lucky I felt to be able to provide everything for them. And so I spent every waking moment with the two of them, spoiling them rotten with the toys, treats, and play that they desired. Nothing was too much for my baby boys. They could have it all. It was pure bliss. Relationships and friendships came and went, but the three of us were constant. They are and were everything to me. And every day that I've been able to spend with them has been nothing short of a blessing. While there were ups and downs and things were far from perfect, we had each other and were incredibly happy. And now, unfortunately, to the sad part of the story. Please be warned that some of the following may be a bit graphic, but I believe it's worth sharing with all the details intact. About 3 weeks ago, I woke up to Zed in his bed, which is tucked away in the corner of my bedroom adjacent to Berg's, with a blank look on his face. He had defecated in the bed and hadn't moved away from it, so I thought maybe he had just had an accident or his stomach wasn't feeling well. He's usually perfect about coming over and bopping me in the face to wake me up and let me out. Odd, I thought, but didn't think much of it. I cleaned it up and went to open the door of my backyard to let the boys out, which Berg did. I called out to Zed to go outside, and he didn't move. Let him rest, I thought. I finished up with Berg, let him in, fed him, and came back to find Zed collapsed on the floor, panting and groaning. It was early, around 6 a.m., so I frantically started searching for emergency vets as I realized this was not a normal episode. I packed him in the car, drove him as quickly as I could, and was greeted almost immediately by the vet techs and doctor. An ultrasound revealed that he had some fluid built up around his heart, a condition called pericardial effusion. The doctor explained the process of how they drain the fluid with a needle, the risks of the procedure, and possible causes, but mentioned she couldn't be sure until the procedure was completed and they could run some tests and take x-rays. The procedure went smoothly, but I got the most terrible news. They suspected a specific cancer, hemangiosarcoma, as the culprit. A tumor in his heart was causing the bleeding and had likely begun spreading to his lungs already. A nasty, disgusting, and viciously aggressive cancer that is nearly impossible to detect via symptoms alone until it's too late. They gave him a guarded to poor outlook with only days or weeks to live. To say I was devastated is the understatement of the century. How? Not my baby boy. He was so happy and playful just the day before. It was surreal.
I took him home and started him on the cocktail of medicines and supplements they gave me. After a much deserved rest, he sprung back to his old self the next day. I was so confused. How could he be dying? I decided to get a second opinion from my primary vet, as well as a friend who is also a DVM, but the news was ultimately the same. Though I did learn that he was fortunately not in any pain. Nonetheless, it was heartbreak all over again. Over the next 12 days, I spoiled him, and by extension, Berg, even worse. Grilled steaks and chicken, treats, bones, and anything his poor little heart desired. He got visits from all of his friends and family members, dogs and people alike. He was gifted pets, treats, and even a filet mignon. We went on short, controlled walks, his favorite activity, but I was warned not to push too hard because of his condition. He was doing great. I thought maybe, just maybe, he could last a bit longer than anticipated, but unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. Monday, March 3rd, 2025, I can say without hyperbole, was that it was the worst day of my life. I was on a Zoom call for a work meeting just before noon, and Zed was laying on his little bed by my side in the office, as he normally does. We generally took our walks around noon. That's pennies, my
Sorry.
friend. uh, during my lunch break, and so as I wrapped up the call, I got up thinking we'd get ready to walk out the door. Zed stood, defecated, and collapsed again. It was the same episode as before. I panicked. The first thing I did was text my sister. It's Zed. I think this is it. She called and said she'd rush over, thankfully, being just a short 10-minute drive away. I hung up and began calling in home euthanasia services to try and make an immediate appointment. I couldn't let him die on a cold floor at the vet, surrounded by people he didn't know in an environment he was uncomfortable being in. My sister also helped call once she arrived, and the earliest we could find was 5 p.m. It was around 1 p.m. when the appointment was made. At this point, Zed had made it out to the living room on his own, laying on the carpet with all the dog toys scattered around from playing earlier. We made him as comfortable as possible with pillows and blankets and his favorite toy, Mr. Moo Cow. His breathing was labored, and he could barely stand. I tried to keep him as calm as possible and begged him to please make it until 5 p.m. I pet and caressed him, told him how much I loved him, and so did my sister. She never left his side. I called my vet friend who I mentioned previously, and she tried to comfort me and give advice on how to make him comfortable. He'll make it to 5, she said, but I now know she may have just been trying to comfort me at that moment. At
Mm.
around 4 p.m., his breathing became increasingly labored, and I fought back tears, telling him it's going to be okay. Just another hour, baby boy, I whispered to him. He was an absolute champion and held on as long as he could, but it wasn't long enough. He passed before the hour did. He defecated and urinated himself, took a few short breaths, and then he was gone. Those final moments were gruesome and traumatic for me to witness, as he twitched a few more times post mortem and his tongue fell out of his mouth. My poor baby sister witnessed all of it as well, and while I am eternally grateful for not being alone in that moment, I felt terrible for putting her through it. Berg lay quietly on the floor next to us. He never does that when guests are over and we're giving Zed attention. He's the jealous type. We placed a blanket over him and let his body rest for the next hour. I was sobbing and yelling at this point. I failed him. I felt like I didn't give him a proper passing. We didn't get to hold him and say goodbye in his last moments. The guilt was and still is tremendous. Why didn't I take him to the vet right then and there? Did I miss symptoms? Did he suffer because of my decision making? Did I fail as a dog dad? The doctor finally arrived at 5, and she helped clean him up. We said our goodbyes. I clipped a tuft of his fur as a keepsake and kissed him goodbye. I told him I was so sorry and to please forgive me. We helped place him on the stretcher and take him out to the car. At this point, my brother and parents had made their way to my home, and so they were able to see him one last time as well. I opted to do a private cremation for him and should be getting his remains back within the next week. He will be with me forever, both physically and spiritually. He was my shadow, and I loved him dearly. It's now been 5 days since he passed. It's still incredibly present in my mind. It's been difficult replaying his final moments over and over in my head. I sobbed multiple times a day and cursed myself for letting him down. The mornings and evenings have been particularly difficult. I miss his velvety kisses and his wet nose booping me for attention. I miss the shouting matches he and his brother would get into, bullying me into feeding them. I miss giving him the little butt scratches that would make him moan and stretch out in enjoyment. I miss him. I miss my Babu, a nickname I had for him. I've lost friends, family members, and family pets, both expectedly and unexpectedly, but I can say unequivocally that this is the deepest pain I've ever felt. Berg has not been the same, mopier and more reserved. It's tough to get him going for his daily walks. He just doesn't seem as motivated without having Zed there, spinning in circles and barking in excitement to lure him up and out. Things just feel off, and I've started to notice weird behavior from him. For example, while he and Zed would constantly swap beds in an effort to one up each other, I've noticed that Berg has not tried to lay in Zed's bed since he passed. The other day, he walked onto it, sniffed around a bit, and walked straight off and into his own bed. It was a difficult thing to witness, especially as he has some mobility issues and doesn't pass the opportunity to lay down comfortably. It may have been nothing, but it certainly seemed like he was paying his respects, almost as if he was saying, I miss you, baby brother. I hold him and cry, telling him it's going to be okay. But deep down, I can't help but think that his days are limited as well at the age of 13 plus. I don't know what I'm going to do when I lose him. He's the only reason I'm even remotely functioning now. The house is quieter, feels empty, but we're doing our best to carry on. I know that time will heal my wounds, and logically, I know the negative, self deprecating things I'm feeling aren't true, but emotionally, I can't help myself. After listening to your show, I realize that some of these feelings of guilt and self doubt are normal and will pass. But right now, it's just too fresh in my mind. I still want to hold on to my baby boy for a bit longer. I love you, Babu, and will never forget you.
What a beautiful story.
Yeah,
And it's
thank
so
you.
sad, but it's so beautiful. He's so, Sean is so clear
Yeah,
in
he
his,
is.
that whole process of the emotions of seeing Zed for the first time, right? And all the way through his death. And he says, "Did I fail as a dog?" Or he asked, "Did I fail as a dog, Dad?" Absolutely not.
No, I mean,
Absolutely not. You were the best dog, Dad.
yeah, and really, what a wonderful death he, his sister, gave to Zed. I mean, they were there with him. They were
Mhm.
comforting him. He was in his home. His brother was there nearby. He passed in the way that most of us would want to. And so it's very painful,
Yes,
but to me, it also shows that it was the right time. I mean, they timed
it
it
was the right time. And
so
he
that,
knew that, right? Because
yeah,
he knew that as soon as that collapse came, right, again,
yep,
and the
yep,
defecation, then that was going to be it. It was hard that the euthanasia that was not able to get there in time,
yeah,
or he died prior to that, and that
right,
was a little hard. I mean, to see the bodily changes during that end
yeah,
is not
yeah.
easy. But they all, like you said, they were all there loving him and through that whole process.
And
Um,
I have to say, both of my the most recent deaths that I've experienced with my two chihuahuas, Abigail and Isabel, both of them died just before they were euthanized.
mhm.
Just before they were, in fact, Abigail, it was very hard for the veterinarian to get a vein. She tried twice, and I just said, "Stop it." And then we
And
just
then she died.
let her pass. And Isabel died in the vet's office shortly after we got there. And it whatever way they go, we have recriminations, right?
Yeah, so there was
We
always
tend to
some
feel
guilt.
not always 100%. In fact, we recently got a letter, which we'll be sharing probably in the next week or two, from a gentleman who said, "I have no guilt at all,"
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
that's the rare
it's rare.
account.
It can happen. People can
And
feel that way, but
yeah,
it's rare. Yeah,
yeah.
that is rare.
And so, what almost always, particularly when euthanasia is part of the equation, we find a way to torture
Torture
ourselves about
ourselves.
it. And
Or
Sean couldn't.
even when he died, Sean was thinking, I couldn't, he couldn't wait to have someone come and peacefully,
Yeah,
euthanize him, right? So, but the thing that was also something he said, he has all of these nuggets of his feelings here, which is so important. I've lost friends, family members, and family pets, both expectedly and unexpectedly, but I can say unequivocally that this is the deepest pain I've ever felt.
yeah,
And we hear that all
all
the
the time, all
time,
the time. People are
all the
surprised by
time.
it, but when you hear the account that Sean shares, and it is resonant with many other accounts,
Mm-hmm.
these are intimates.
Children.
They are intimates. They are with us
Mm-hmm.
in our homes all the time. They sleep in our beds in many families.
Yeah.
They 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 are always telling us what their needs are. Or we have to intuit their needs, and there are very few human relationships that are
Very few.
so connected and so intimate, and it's also, we relate to them in a language that goes beyond words
Yes.
because we
It's a
have to,
connection.
and it's the richness of it, the depth of it, and when we
Mm-hmm.
lose it, it can be
It's
just
unfathomable.
rip us apart. It can just rip us apart. So
Well,
we want to,
well,
you know,
it also is like, you know, when you don't realize how the depth is until that
well,
happens, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then that suffering, as we had talked about, that suffering takes place.
yeah.
And we thank you, Sean, for
Well,
sharing
thank you so
this.
much, and we wish you a peaceful heart.
Yeah.
And also, let's just share. We've got a number of comments, but let's share a couple of them. This is from Celeste, who says it's the worst fast
Oh,
acting
oh,
cancer,
Ralphie.
and
Ralphie
her
had it
Ralphie had it in his ribs and
5
lost him in
weeks.
5 weeks. So she's talking about the
Oh,
hemangiosarcoma.
yes. Oh, Celeste, thank you for sharing that, even
And
though that I know
then
that's so hard.
and she also wrote it's just so heartbreaking, the story. And Angela wrote something similar, beyond beautiful, heartwarming and heartbreaking at
Break
the
at the
same
same
time.
time. Yes, Angela,
And
thank you.
and then what a beautiful tribute to an
Hmm.
incredible and loving bond. And so we want to once again
Thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
Sean. And we'll just remind you again, if you find this kind of program, you find this program helpful, please do subscribe, leave a comment, give a thumbs up. That all of that helps other people find the program when they're looking for support with their grief.
Yeah.
And Nancy, always great talking with you. We actually
We
saw each
actually,
other.
yes, we had breakfast
We had
together.
breakfast together because I was on a quick trip to New Jersey.
It was very nice, Ken.
And so it was great to see you. And I don't advise driving in New Jersey. I did it for
Well,
I did it for 35
yeah,
years,
long time.
and it's always
It's an
it's
adventure.
like a video game. But that's beside the
True.
point. Anyway, have a good evening,
Yes,
everybody.
everyone, take care.
Bye bye.